When you think about modern farming, especially something like hydroponics, it's so easy to just picture this one super high-tech, futuristic lab, right? But the reality is actually a whole lot more interesting. It's this fascinating spectrum of approaches, from just simple, hands-on intuition, all the way to full-blown artificial intelligence. So let's dive right in and unpack this. So here's a fun question to kick things off. Could you actually grow the perfect salad with a Raspberry Pi? But maybe the better question is, should you? That's really what we're going to dig into today. We're going to explore these totally different philosophies of soil-free growing, from what I'm calling the pragmatic gardener all the way over to the DIY engineer. All right, so before we jump into the deep end with all the different hows, let's just make sure we're all on the same page with the what. What exactly is this method that seems to promise it's going to completely change how we grow our food? At its core, it's actually beautifully simple. Basically, instead of plants having to pull all their nutrients out of the dirt, they get everything they need to deliver directly through water. That's it. But that one little shift, well, it has some absolutely massive implications. So why would you even go soil-free? Well, the benefits are pretty compelling. For starters, you use way less water. You get total, precise control over what your plants are eating. And when you get it right, you get incredibly consistent results and higher yields. It's basically farming, but reimagined as this perfectly controlled system. Okay, so it all sounds pretty amazing, right? Super efficient, total control. But if that's the case, what's the challenge here? Well, that question gets us right to the core tension of this whole topic. See, the very thing that makes hydroponics so powerful, all that control, is also what makes it incredibly demanding. Yeah, it's this constant, delicate balancing act. You're juggling pH, nutrients, temperature, even the microbes in the water. And if you get just one of those variables wrong, boom, your whole crop could be at risk. And it's this constant need for monitoring that has really created two, let's call them very different schools of thought on how to best manage it all. So first up, let's talk about the low-tech counterpoint. This is what I'm calling the pragmatic gardener philosophy. And it really boils down to this. Sometimes all this new tech just creates more problems than it actually solves. And this quote from a user on Reddit just captures this feeling perfectly. They said, "I was spending more time playing Reservoir Manager 2024 than I was paying attention to the plants." And wow, that just hits, doesn't it? The whole goal is to grow plants, right? Not to become a full-time IT manager for your garden. The focus completely shifts from the actual crop to this super complex system that's just supposed to support it. And here's another one that just gets right to the heart of it. The internet has complicated the living shit out of hydroponics when it absolutely doesn't need to be. This is the pragmatic gardener's philosophy in a nutshell. The argument is that we've just way overcomplicated a natural process. I mean, plants are resilient. They don't always need these perfectly optimized computer-controlled conditions. Sometimes just good enough is all you really need for a fantastic harvest. Okay, but then you have the complete other end of the spectrum. This is the DIY engineer. And this person sees that whole complex balancing act not as a chore. Oh no, they see it as an incredible opportunity for automation. Now, I know a fully automated setup can look super intimidating, right? All those wires and sensors. But we can actually make sense of it all by breaking it down with a really simple analogy. Just think of it like a body. It's got a brain, it's got senses, and it's got muscles. And here's how it all connects. The brain, that's your central controller. In this case, a Raspberry Pi running some cool software called Mycoto. Then you have the senses. These are all your monitors, your sensors for pH, temperature, water levels, all that stuff constantly feeding data to the brain. And finally, the muscles. These are the things that take physical action, like peristaltic pumps and power relays, carrying out the brain's commands to, say, adjust the pH or add more water.
So, what's on this automated gardener's to-do list? Well, pretty much everything. It automatically adjusts pH and nutrients, it schedules the grow lights, it controls fans and humidifiers. It'll even send you an email alert if the water gets low, track your electricity costs, and heck, it'll capture time-lapse photos of your plants growing. Remember that frustrating reservoir manager job we talked about? Yeah, this system basically puts that whole thing on autopilot. It completely frees you up to, actually focus on the plants.
And the level of detail here goes deep. I mean, just take the muscles, the relays, which are basically the switches that turn things on and off. The choice isn't just random. For high-current devices like your big grow lights, you'd use a mechanical relay. It makes an audible click, but it can handle the power. But for something that's switching on and off really fast, like a fan, you'd use a solid-state relay. It's totally silent and lasts for millions of hours. Every single component is chosen for a very specific job.
And this is where the system gets really smart. It goes way beyond just simple if-then rules. It uses something called fuzzy logic. So think about it this way. Instead of the temperature hitting exactly 76 degrees and the fan just blasting on at full power, the system can make a more nuanced call. It might say, it's getting a little warm, so let's just turn the fan on at, say, 30% power. It's a much more gradual and, frankly, a much more efficient way to control everything.
Okay, so now let's go all the way to the far end of our spectrum. We've gone from simple, hands-off gardening to this really nuanced automation. But what if the system didn't just follow commands? What if it could actually think and give you expert advice? Well, this is where we meet the AI agronomist. So there's this project called SHY. That stands for Sustainable Hydroponic AI. And what it does is use a large language model that's been specifically trained on tons and tons of hydroponics info. So here's how it works. First, it ingests all this data, just scans a huge library. Then it organizes all that information into a special knowledge base. Then you come along and ask it a really specific question. And finally, the AI retrieves all the relevant facts from its knowledge base and generates a tailored, expert-level answer. It's not just guessing. It's pulling from a deep well of information.
And this is the fundamental leap. It's the huge difference between automation and artificial intelligence. The automated gardener we just talked about, it reacts to data. It sees pH as 5.4 and its programming says add base. It's basically a robot following orders. But the AI agronomist, it reasons with knowledge. You can ask it these complex strategic questions like, what's the optimal nutrient schedule for lettuce when it's in its bloom phase? That goes so far beyond just simple system maintenance.
So there you have it. We've journeyed across this whole spectrum and seen three really distinct approaches, right? You've got the hands-off pragmatist, this super hands-on engineer, and then this futuristic AI consultant. The big question now is, what's your growth style? Where do you see yourself fitting in? When you break it down, each of these archetypes really has its own logic. The pragmatic gardener, their key tool is intuition and experience, and the complexity is low. The DIY engineer, they're all about that Raspberry Pi and sensors, which is, high complexity. And then the AI agronomist relies on a large language model, which is a whole other level, very high complexity. One trusts experience, one loves the challenge of building, and one just wants an expert on call 24/7. And I think this is the most crucial point of all. There's no single right way to do any of this, not at all. The absolute best system is the one that fits you, the one that fits your personal goals, your budget, and maybe most importantly, your own sense of curiosity. Which kind of leaves us with one final big question to chew on. As all these technologies get more and more powerful and way more accessible, is the future of farming going to be more about code than it is about cultivation? I mean, are we heading toward a future where a successful farmer needs to be just as skilled with a keyboard as they are with a trowel? Definitely something to think about.